Hey, welcome to the new year, the new live stream of consciousness. It is season 3, I guess we'll call it. I'm still here. It's 2023. Uh, I know it's not the right thing to do to begin with an apology. I usually try not to do that, but I have been sick all day in bed with a horrible headache. And I just didn't think that I could do justice to my interview with Cyndi. So I'm rescheduling Cyndi Flowers. It's going to be an awesome conversation. I'm looking forward to it. If you haven't been here before, the live stream of consciousness is a great place to sit and listen to people having great conversations about life and spirituality and consciousness and all sorts of interesting things. That's what I do here, and it has become my happy place. So even though I have a horrible headache, I'm here just to smile and share my moment with you. So thank you for being here. If you are here, I was trying to think of what to do. I did want to come on live just briefly to say hello. I took off work today, so I don't want to be sitting in front of the computer. I just couldn't sit in front of the computer. So again, I apologize, and I thank you all for being a part of my world, the live stream of consciousness. You all show up so diligently and smiling, and I couldn't be happier. Before I start to play the Lorie Lad episode, I did want to talk about myself for a second. Somebody told me I don't give myself enough credit. I don't really kind of let the world know who I am other than, interviewing these people. So I figured I would do that. I created some artwork recently that I'm very, very proud of and very happy with, and want to offer for sale if anyone is interested in getting a print of some of my artwork. I'm going to put it up here on the screen. I created a new piece called The Moonkeeper. This is the new human dollar called The Moonkeeper. I have it a print here in metal. That's pretty cool. So this is the Moonkeeper. It's a print on metal. So it's got kind of cool, shiny qualities to it. And I'm making it available for sale. This one is on metal. You can hang it up. It's got a nice, it's done pretty nicely. If you're interested in something like that, give me a call. I'm going to probably be trying to push my artwork a little bit more and talking about it and showing it and sharing it. So again, thanks for indulging me in doing that. And I'm going to show you the other piece here, which I call Divine Sacred Geometry. And that's another piece that I did. Again, I use a projector. I project on my models, who happens to be Janice, my girlfriend. And then I manipulate the image into a human dollar. And that one is Sacred Divine, Divine Sacred Geometry. I call that one. And I have that one here as well in a metal print. So you can see how the light's shining off it too much, but you can see it's got a pretty cool dimensional quality to it, and probably a sacred energy to it as well. So anyway, without further ado, I'm not trying to sell you stuff. I just wanted to honor myself and what I do. As you can see, I'm a wreck. I'm going to go to bed. But I do hope that you guys enjoy watching this. Lorie Lad is an amazing, amazing author. She has a book, which I have right here, called The Divine Design, which is doing really, really well. It's just about why we are here, why we are human. What does that mean even? It's a great book if you're into that kind of stuff. So I'm going to play her episode. It was an amazing, amazing conversation. And I hope you enjoy it. And Ninja Kitty, thank you so much for being here always since the beginning. I really appreciate you. You don't even know. Jill, also, I appreciate you so, so, so much. We are all connected, and I love you guys for being here for the live stream of consciousness, all of those who come. I'm going to put this on. I'm just going to kind of go lay in bed and listen while it's playing so I can come say goodbye, I guess, at the end and shut the broadcast off. But feel free to comment. Maybe I'll peek over at the comments every once in a while. And again, I love you. We appreciate you, Mike. I appreciate that appreciation. I love that mirror reflection back and forth, infinite reflections of gratitude. Awesome. Thank you, Ninja Kitty. Uh, all right. Before I talk anymore, I'm going to go. I'm going to put this on. Enjoy. This is Lorie Ladd from the live stream of consciousness last year. Hello, hello. You guys have made it, and I have made it, and I'm so excited. Oh my God. We have made it here together to an exciting night for me for the live stream of consciousness. I think we have an amazing guest tonight that is so relevant to why this show even started. I guess that's why I'm so excited. But welcome to the live stream of consciousness. My name is Michael Zinn. If you haven't been here before, and we basically talk about consciousness and existence and all of the infinite things that are involved with that here on the show. And tonight's guest was recommended to me by Jill, who is one of our viewers who you guys know very well. And we are just so excited that she said yes. I see Randy out there saying hello. I see Madison out there saying hello. I see Lily out there, who's one of our viewers, ready to go. Some new people out there. This is awesome. I'm excited. The energy is all the way up here for me tonight. And you know, we all talk about energy all the time here. How energy is everything, and that's like one of the first sentences I think in the book. So it's like pretty amazing. So the book that I'm talking about, the guest that I'm talking about, has written this amazing book called The Divine Design, which I feel like I haven't even gotten to through 100 pages. I'm like almost at 100 pages, and it's such an amazing book. It's such an amazing time for this book to come out, and we're going to talk about all of that. What's up, Carla? Good to see you out there. I'm just too excited to babble on anymore. I'm going to bring our guest on. Welcome to the live stream of consciousness, Lorie Ladd. Welcome.
Hi, Michael. Hello, everyone. Thanks for having me on. I'm
Oh my
excited to
God.
dive in.
Yeah, thanks for being here. This is so perfect. When Jill recommended you, I said, you know, what's she all about? And I looked at who you were, and immediately you started popping up on my Instagram. You do a lot of live feeds with just inspirational thoughts of the moment, and you know, you subscribe to a lot of the basic concepts that we subscribe to here about the moment being everything, right? So before we get into your stuff, I do want to kind of initiate you with the standard live stream of consciousness. Uh, I guess what's the word I'm looking for? Protocol. So the live stream of consciousness. The first thing I do, and this is the greatest thing because I ask the same question to all my guests, and the answer is always different, but it's always the same. And to you, this is going to be an amazing question. But what is consciousness? What is consciousness to you, Lorie?
Ooh, good question. Juicy question. Consciousness to me it's energy, and but it's a spectrum. So it's almost like there's layers to consciousness.
Mhm,
To describe consciousness in a sentence or in a word would be a disservice. It's
mhm,
complex, it's multi-layered, it's also quite simple. That's the challenging thing about consciousness,
mhm,
is it is literally a spark, a tone,
mhm,
a pulse, but it's also every single thing that you could possibly experience as an awareness. Um,
mhm, mhm,
it's an emotion, it's a thought, it's a behavior. That's consciousness,
mhm,
right?
mhm,
It's
mhm,
experience. And yet simultaneously it's simply this. It's simply it's everything and one vibrational tone. So for me it's extremely difficult to define consciousness.
But you really you
Yeah.
really have. I mean, that's you know what it is, and I'm realizing this as I was trying to think of questions for you, is language is such a limited set of communication. Even though I pride myself on being able to communicate so well through language, I'm realizing through your book, like what a small subset of communication it even is. you know um so I get it, but that that's totally a great, amazing answer. That's a great soundbite for me. Thank you.
Yeah.
um
Yeah,
and
language, it's crazy. Language keeps us restricted.
Yeah, yeah. It's crazy to even think that, right? That language is almost suppressive, right? It's like,
1000%.
isn't that crazy?
Yeah.
But if you want to find more of the answer to that question from Lorie, you definitely can find it here in this book. When I was reading this book, like Jill said earlier, it's all over the book. What is consciousness, and what it's about, and the different layers that we talk about. And I have a bunch of questions written down. I have a bunch of questions from Jill. I'm going to bring her on also. But there's a second part of this protocol, and that, again, that probably is connected to everything else we're going to talk about. And that is there a specific moment? Has it always been this way? Can you tell us a story of a moment that you realized that everything wasn't what you had been taught? That there was this other side to things, and I don't even want to say other side, just this other aspect to things. Let's call it an aspect, right?
Yeah. It's interesting. There wasn't really a moment. It was almost like the awareness was just always there.
Hmm.
So there wasn't ever anything that occurred where it was like a pop out, that pop out where you're like, holy cow, look at what we're in. The
Hmm.
that it happened, I think, to a lot of people in 2020, where it was like your whole
Hmm.
reality just sort of dissolves, and you're looking at life in a totally different way. That never
Hmm.
happened to me. I always just sort of knew I was in a movie,
Hmm.
and
Hmm. Hmm.
and I always sort of knew that there was something else, that this was a play, that there was something else going on. It
Hmm.
was just an internal absolute knowingness. And my mom was really awake. She was very into all the things that people are looking into now, and and
Hmm.
and and, and consciousness and energy and everything. And so I
Right.
was going to these seminars and retreats at 13, 14, 15 years old, kind of
Right.
just devouring this information of like, wow, there is a world outside of everything we have been taught.
Right.
And so it was always just, when these things would happen, when the government would tell us these things, when, all these things that we were watching and unraveling, it was like I knew that it was for something bigger. I knew that there
Right.
was something bigger happening behind the scenes.
Right.
And yeah, there's it's hard to describe, but it's just been this.
No, no, no. That's exactly the answer I'm looking for. You're telling me basically there was always this knowing. It wasn't like, I talk to different people here, so sometimes it's, somebody's mother-in-law died. We had a woman, Annette, Marinaccio, who wrote a book about her mother-in-law died, and for years her mother-in-law was trying to reach her, and she just didn't believe, and finally the mother-in-law reached her, and her whole life changed, and just by crossing realms and experiencing those things. So totally makes sense to also. I think I'm kind of with you. I think for me there was always this knowing. I talk about a lot lately this story about when I was 15, I could remember just thinking in my head, like, what horrible shape this planet was in because of all the division
Mm,
of races, of countries, of all of these things, and that we needed to unify as humans. And that the only thing that would do that at the time, it was manifesting my head as a vision of the mothership, like a big alien ship, appearing on Earth, and humans having no other choice but to say, okay, we got to get together. We got to something. There's more to this, right? But as I've gotten older, I can see that may have just been representational of other dimensions showing up and revealing themselves, and what I like to talk about lately as the veil just being lifted, because that's where we're at in humanity, as far as I think I'm concerned, and a lot of the people who watch this show are concerned, or listen to this stuff. So I think that's why your book resonated so strongly.
Yeah.
you
It's
know
interesting. When I was 13 and I was kind of told by these, now I know that it was the beans that gave me this book, but at the
Mhm,
time at 13 it was just this outside voice. It was definitely not
mhm,
inside. It was an outside voice.
mhm,
And I was walking home in Hermosa Beach from my friend's house to my house. And I'll never forget the vision. I remember where I was, and this voice came in and was like, "You're here to assist humanity in
mhm.
this ascension, in this evolution in human consciousness." And the because of the state of the planet at that time, this was in 1989, right?
Right, right.
There was this awareness that we were literally destroying the planet and we were all going to die. That's
Mhm.
kind of like the awareness that a lot of us had at that time. I mean, I was 13, so what did I know?
Right.
But
I was gonna say, didn't you say like, "Hey, man, I'm 13, calm down. I'm here to save humanity."
they were like, I had this idea in my head, or they told, I got something confused, okay, but they were showing me these ships coming down,
Mhm, mhm.
and me kind of helping humans into the ships as if the
Oh, wow.
planet was going to have some sort of destruction, right?
Right, right,
When now we're like, now there's this awareness of like, oh, so there are higher dimensional beings that are going to be coming in and assisting us, but we're actually not going anywhere.
right,
um, where there's like a death or rebirth happening on the planet.
right.
And so it's sort of like I'm taking on this like midwifery sort of position where I'm kind of holding people's hands, like this
Interesting.
is what we're going through. But I had the ships come in back then too, of like,
Yeah, yeah.
yeah,
Interesting way to put it. It's this midwifery
yeah,
position of like helping people understand. And I think that's also I relate to that too, because I think in the past bunch of years, what helped me understand a lot of things was a lot of really gifted people were coming into my life and resonating very strongly with, and I was becoming close friends with psychic mediums, people who read Akashic records, all of these different modalities of spirituality that were kind of coming to me, and just as friends, and they were all resonating with this same vibration, and I totally understood all of these things, but I didn't really I don't want to say I didn't have those gifts. I didn't exercise those gifts. Those weren't my modalities that I was practicing, right? And um it was just really interesting how everything changed, and how I got to the realizations that I did. um so
yeah.
anyway, I lost my train of thought where I was going with that.
I
Because
remember being like in eighth grade, ninth grade, and having these like abilities. Now I guess you would call them like psychic abilities or
Mhm.
intuitive gifts or whatever. But I just remember being able to know like who liked who, what somebody was
Right,
thinking,
right,
what was
right, right,
going on in the room when we were, the eighth grade dance, you know.
right,
I had these like knowingnesses at such
right,
a young age that were just absolutes, and
right,
but I never really did anything with them.
right, right.
They were just there, you know.
It was just a feeling. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, it was just energy.
Right. Well, I think, and that ties right into what both of your answers were to the question, is that you were just connected to this energy always, and you just weren't really sure about it, but you felt it, and that's
Yeah.
kind of what I was saying. And one of the things I feel is really interesting about your book, I want to say this before I forget it, because as you were talking, I realized it. You said something about consciousness being a feeling, and that to me is so true in so many ways. And one of the reactions I had when I told people I was going to be talking to you, and somebody who had read your book said that the book makes her feel a certain way. And I resonated with that, because I'm reading the book, and I don't want to say I'm having a hard time understanding it. I'm not. I'm going back and I'm reading things over and over and over again, but I'm feeling it. It's just a different thing than reading, and the way the information is coming through is definitely energetic. You know what I mean? And it's definitely feeling. And I'm wondering now, that brought up the question, just through reading your book and what you said, is through creating this book, does the book have a consciousness to it?
It's a good question. I mean, that's a really good question. I mean, essentially, the answer would be yes, because
Yeah,
when you are interacting with it, so everything's physical, but nothing's physical. It's
right,
all energetic.
right,
Everything is energetic,
right,
right?
right.
So if the book is encoded with words,
As intentions. Well, everything you talk
yeah,
about in the book is that things were created, and you always talk about things from the we perspective, right? So you created the book with a lot of intention. So you're doing what you're talking about in the book. So therefore, the book must have a consciousness,
it
right? I mean,
has to.
it is a consciousness. The book itself is a consciousness that you
Yeah,
created.
because I'm not.
I'm just talking. I'm just realizing this stuff as
Yeah,
you're talking.
because I'm not actually there reading the book to you in person,
Right.
right? So how is everybody having these experiences energetically? Some people are being knocked out, they go to sleep. Some people have energy, like they can feel their body vibrating different. What is that?
Hmm. Right.
What the printer didn't do it,
Right. That's
right?
right.
Like,
It's a consciousness that you created. It's
yeah.
holding a form of the book. See, now a lot of what I'm reading is making more sense now that I'm listening to you. The consciousness you created is holding the form of the book in 3 dimensions.
Right, the energy and intention
Yeah.
is now put into the book, because I do remember, my guides were telling me, they're like, the book is an activation. It's a
Hmm.
cellular remembrance.
Hmm.
And I was like,
Hmm.
I don't know. Okay, that's great. Like the actual like mechanics of that, like what, like to wrap your head around a cellular activation is almost too much to sort of comprehend, but we just sort of dissected that in a way,
Right.
because the words hold codes, even though those words are printed out.
Right.
It's,
Right. Right.
you
Well,
know,
that's just the physical form that it had to take
yeah,
in order for other consciousnesses to experience it.
yeah,
Right. And
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 yeah,
and what's crazy is, just in talking to you in these last couple of sentences, I feel like you just activated some sort of knowledge that I can understand the rest of the book now, because I was really going back and like, okay, let me read this again. Let me read this again. 12D, 5D, you're talking about all of these things, but I think what we just said makes a lot of sense. I just want to acknowledge, we have Kathy out there, Kathy Ann Tate, saying she's new to Michael, but a longtime follower of Lorie. Happy to have found my channel. Thank you so much.
yay, hi
Please
Kathy.
subscribe. I'm so glad you're here. This is what we do. We love to talk to people like Lorie. I'm so glad she's here. And Anubis Alum is saying, as I am reading, I am imagining Lorie talking to me directly. So there's certainly that energy as well that comes through the book. But seriously, like, I'm so glad that I even made that realization talking to you, that you created the book, and that the book, because I think when I think of consciousness, as I think of a being, holding that consciousness. Hey guys, what's happening? I was laying down. I stood up and I saw that the video was off sync. It looked like it was off sync, so I'm just gonna let it catch up here. And so a lot of what you're talking about in the book is forms holding these consciousnesses. And I was like, oh, so a rock is holding a 3-dimensional consciousness. You're kind of trying to make these things, but the book is a different entity altogether. It's a creation from a consciousness, right, and into a
That's
physical form.
fascinating. I never actually thought. It's very similar to how the body was made. Like, how did DNA come into fruition? How did they create?
Right.
How did DNA are light codes? DNA is
Right.
energy. It's
Well, I did read that chapter. I do have a question written down about DNA, and kind of likening them to Akashic records, right? I mean,
yep.
they're kind of very similar to
Yeah.
Akashic records.
Yeah, consciousness is just it's never ending. It's like you can
Right.
just go in and just play in consciousness and just like your mind can just explode like, wait, what?
Right.
Uh, like it's so to me it's the best subject ever. I just love it. I
I
live
love
it. I breathe
it.
it. And to me it is a feeling. It's not like an emotion feeling. It's like an energy, like electricity almost or something. It's
Mhm.
just you can't pinpoint. You can't pinpoint it. I think
Well, again, that goes back to the idea of language, right? And us being three-dimensional forms that we're holding, like how do we talk about what created us? You know what I mean? What's really beautiful for me is I always had a lot of struggle. I had a struggle with organized religion for a while, right? Because I felt like it was for control and certain things that we're not going to go into are true or not true. Um, but the word God, for instance, I had a lot of trouble with, and the word faith. And it was through, I think, my own work and my own understanding my understanding of perception, you know what I mean, that I was able to at first I had to replace the word God in my head. When people would say it, I would say, oh, you mean universe, you know but I understood that God is that source energy that we're even talking about. And in the book you talk about how that's in all of us have a piece of that. And then when source decided to, separate into all of these individual consciousness. So awesome, man. I have some questions here. Your book is amazing. It really is. Like I said, I'm not a big reader, and it's really interesting because even though it's a whole different message and a whole different energy. One of the few books I've ever read, or in the writers that I've ever gotten into, is Douglas Adams, who wrote The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. And even though his book is kind of comedy, it is a science fiction story that goes into some cosmic things. But the writing style, oh, I see that I'm breaking up here. Hold on a
a
second.
little bit.
You know what, Lorie, when that happens, I like to just kind of refresh my computer. So why don't you hang here for a second? Why don't you let me get you started? Why don't you tell my audience something interesting about yourself while I refresh and
All
join
right,
back
I'll
in?
show you guys I'll tell you guys how the book came through. It's pretty fascinating. Um, I was in Machu Picchu, and the book came through as visions or images. And I'll show you a photo real fast while Michael's doing his thing. Hold on, one sec. So the book came in as sort of like one big massive kind of quote unquote download. And it was like a movie, like a Star Wars movie. And I've told my audience this before. But it came in as like a movie scene, right? And so in order for me to like grasp this information, because I didn't understand any of it, when I got home from Machu Picchu, I made this. This was the outline of the book. So you know how lots of people have an outline of like chapter 1, A, B, right? Like that's their outline. My outline looked like this. So I'm going to see if I can like put
Oh,
it up.
wow.
So it was like, let me just move this. So for a second, it was literally like, so it starts here and it goes like this and then down and then down and then down. So this was my outline. And I just,
Oop, I'm sorry. I cut you out. I meant to just
yeah.
join in
So
myself.
I had this hanging on my wall, and it was how it's really how the book came through, is just these
Wow.
images and these diagrams. And so it was very difficult because it's consciousness, and it's
Yeah.
like how do you, I'm not smart, I didn't take physics and all this, like I don't understand DNA.
But
And
that starts to look like, Da Vinci's journal. You know what I mean? It's a sketch of how energy is working and what was coming through.
Yeah, it's fascinating the way it came through. It was just, I mean,
Amazing.
it definitely, the DNA chapter really hurt my brain.
Right.
It really was painful.
Wow. Wow. And it's, again, I almost want to say that the DNA part, I read through the DNA part, and that didn't hurt my brain so much. I understood that one. I was like, oh, that makes sense. I was like, that one's cool. But,
Yeah.
it's what's cool is I think there's a lot of concepts that you're talking about that are basic, that people have heard hints of, you know what I mean? What's really also fascinating to me, I'm noticing, and I guess I've always known this, like you're saying, is the stories of ancient civilizations and things like that, and how that ties in. And it's almost like, oh, wait a second, we used to know all of this stuff, you know what I mean? And somewhere along the line, stuff changed,
Yeah.
and I know you go into that in the book too. So
Yeah. That's what's so fascinating too, is like where we are going in our consciousness, unfortunately, is where we've already been.
right,
So
crazy.
it's like, and it's fascinating to think that there were continents existing that have sunk, that, there's artifacts, there's things
Hmm.
that they're
Hmm.
finding in the waters, that validate that. But
Hmm.
there were civilizations, human civilizations, that were in much higher frequencies than we
Hmm.
are now. And I think that's becoming a little bit more embraced.
Hmm. Hmm.
But it's still, it can be a challenge to kind of wrap your head around that. But absolutely, we never began as a human collective in this low frequency.
Right, right. So I want to get into some questions that I have. I want to bring Jill on the show also, because I know she's got some questions. I have her questions here, but I'll let her ask you some of her questions. I'll ask you some of them. But before I do that, there's some stuff that I'm interested in, that is also very current, and you may get into it in the book. I haven't seen it yet. Um, but one of my thoughts about humanity, and I don't know, I guess it has to relate to consciousness too. Um, is the evolution of humanity. So yeah, it would relate to consciousness. But it's the evolution of humanity and where AI stands in that picture. You know what I mean? Because to
Mhm.
me, and I'll just throw out my thoughts first, and you can tell me what your thoughts are. To me, I feel like that's a part of the evolution of humanity, and the reason I say that is, like you said, we're trying to get our consciousness back to where it was, right? And when you say it was, in my imagination, I'm thinking of, being a light being is being able to teleport instantly in time and space, these kinds of fantastical things, right? In this existence, they seem fantastical, right? But they came from somewhere. Those ideas came from somewhere, right? So to me, I feel like if we were able to upload our consciousness into a digital form, aren't we back at that energetic realm? Aren't we in that energetic realm, in that you're
Yeah, it's
shaking
a
your head
great
yes?
question.
Ooh, I love that I'm making you think here. This is
Yeah,
amazing. Yeah.
it's a really good question because you one of the reasons that evolution is a very slow progression is because we have an ego.
Mhm.
We have a really dense ego, an ego that likes to be in control, and that has a lot of trauma, and that lives in greed and
Mhm.
manipulation, right? That's just part of this third dimensional realm, and the ego is in charge in this realm, fortunately or
Mhm.
unfortunately. So when you start evolving and accessing information like AI, it can either be a good thing or a bad thing.
Right.
And
Agreed.
so, yeah, so it's a scary thing when humanity starts to kind of awaken, because they can access and awarenesses, they can access, things like AI, and then they can use it not for the highest good.
Mhm. Mhm. Mhm.
So I don't know what's going to happen with
Right.
AI and humanity. It
But
really,
that would be true of energy in general, right? I mean, isn't that, I mean, when you talk, and that I'm imagining, I mean, there you go. There's all sorts of tangents to this, but I'm imagining that comes from duality, right? From good and evil, right? So there's either good intentions or evil intentions, right?
yeah.
So it's how do I'm trying to think of solutions to the problem. Like,
We
how do
have
we?
to like, I mean, really the solution would be us keeping ourselves, us choosing higher states of being as we are accessing this information.
Right,
So, is this for the highest good? Is this loving? Is this
right,
compassionate? Is this in control? Are they? Is this out of control? Are they trying to
right,
control? Are they trying to? Is this part of? Is there an energy of fear? Is there an energy of
right.
greed or something like that? So, but it's hard with AI because one of the things that brought humanity down was AI, was this ability to access this higher technology um, that just almost destroyed the planet physically.
Mhm, mhm.
So it's the same thing with, like, if we had the ability, thank God we don't remember how to manifest instantaneously.
Right,
Because
right,
if
right,
we had that ability to instantaneously
right.
manifest, we would be screwed.
So is that, I guess that's and again, I'm just responding, out of my
Yeah.
head here. Is that a three-dimensional limitation? Like, in other words, in 5D, we're still not free of judgment, right? I think in the book you talk about 7D is where we all of those things fall away, right? In 5D, they exist somehow, because I know for me, my struggle is that 3D always feeling like, from what I've known before I read your book, like I was always like, oh, I just want to get to 5D, you know what I mean? And now it's like, no, I want to be beyond that, or I wa- I am that, right? I don't want to be that. I want to be able to access that, right?
Access it,
Yeah,
exactly.
I
That's
want to be
the
able to
word.
access that. So,
Yeah.
so, so I know I didn't get to it, but I was trying to cram in your book before I got to speak to you. So I did jump ahead, and I know it almost does play out like a movie. And I know Jill told me this, and where there's a thing that I didn't even really understand about dimensions of four-dimensional beings, not necessarily being as righteous as the rest of consciousness, I guess, and where that all happens. Let's start talking about the book a little bit. And I'm going to bring Jill on, who is a avid viewer of the show and suggested you. I want to welcome to the live stream. She has been here before. Welcome, Jalixa Marie. How you doing, Jill?
Hi guys, very good, thank you.
Hi.
Hi Lorie.
Hello, hello.
So I know she gave me a bunch of questions I printed out, uh, and I have a couple of questions that I wrote out. And I'm kind of still early in the book, like I said, and there's a sentence or two. Oh, let me go back to this for 1 second. Sorry, my brain's all over the place. I was talking about Douglas Adams and the Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy being one of the few books, or actually he has a bunch of books, and I read them all because his writing style was such that I think he specifically wrote sentences that made you kind of read them and be like, cool, and then like, huh? And then go back and read it again. You know what I mean? And it was, I have a similar experience with your book, but again, your book is more knowledge, and remembering and understanding and that feeling. And I guess his book was a feeling too. It was fiction. I don't know. Anyway, there's this comparison that I have. I don't know why I had to go back to it.
I
But
love it.
anyway, so
I love
there's a sentence in your book that I did kind of go over a couple times, and you talk about consciousness. You talk about individual consciousness, and you talk about collective consciousnesses, or a collective consciousness, because that's a singular, right? But you say something. You say there are more collective consciousnesses than individual consciousnesses. And then I think a few sentences later, you say there are thousands of individual consciousnesses within a collective consciousness. So that's confusing to me. Can you help me with that?
Yeah. So imagine like a human collective is a collective consciousness. And within that collective consciousness, so we're speaking about what they're speaking about is what's in the 12th dimensional grid.
Mhm.
So you want to think about the collective consciousnesses that are coming in are like a group of like here's one human collective, here's one human collective, and they all have different traits, right? And the human collective A has a specific trait, and there's, let's just say, thousands and thousands of individual consciousnesses that are creating that collective consciousness.
Mhm.
And so when the 12th dimensional grid was created and energies or consciousnesses chose to come in, they either came in separate, all alone as a single consciousness, okay,
Mhm.
or as a collective. They came from a collective consciousness, like the human collective is one big, huge family.
Mhm.
And so when they said that more collective consciousnesses are in, what they're trying to say is in the 12th dimensional grid, not in this whole quantum field, but in the 12th dimensional grid, the consciousnesses that came in, there's more collective consciousnesses that came into the grid. Not in now, so there's millions of individual consciousnesses within that collective.
Right.
But there's a difference between a consciousness that chose to come in from a collective consciousness, so part of a collective, as opposed to an individual consciousness that's sort of floating around and was like, I'm going to go in and join.
So an individual consciousness is not necessarily a part of that of the collective.
Correct, because obviously there's millions of individual consciousnesses inside the collective making up the collective. But the differentiation was, was your consciousness in part of a family that came in, or was it solo? And what they were saying was most consciousnesses came from a collective or are part of a collective.
Okay.
And a collective to me just felt more like when I was bringing the information, and it's like the human collective, like a family, like you all sort of are experiencing the quantum field in similar ways. Whereas an individual consciousness is in their own kind of world, for a better word. It's a
universe.
Their own thing. I don't even know, right? Because I don't have access to that. So I don't even know.
We don't have the language for it.
Yeah. So even like trying to but that's what they meant when they said there's more collective consciousness.
Okay.
They're
I think that
speaking
makes
of
sense.
the 12D grid and the consciousnesses that chose to come in. So imagine it's either are coming in from a cloud or you're coming in completely singular. In the cloud, there's thousands of
I think that makes sense. So now that actually brings me to another question, because I think you're kind of alluding to multiple human collectives, right? So there are different I guess that hold different aspects of humanity.
Oh no, I was just using that as an example.
Okay.
Yeah, I was just an example of a collective consciousness would be the human collective, right?
Okay.
So, but collective consciousnesses are very different than how we are experiencing, but this human experience. But the human collective is a collective, and what I mean when I say collective is it creates one vibrational tone. It creates one frequency. So the human collective has a single frequency that is evolving at the same time. And that's why we can impact humanity, because our individual frequency impacts the collective frequency
of that frequency. Right.
Yeah. So one little body creates an entire one singular collective frequency. And so when you think about a collective frequency, you're actually like, okay, I'm going to step into a cloud, and I'm in this cloud with a million bazillion other individual consciousnesses. We're all experiencing the cloud, but based on our individual frequency, we're going to be experiencing that singular cloud collective a little bit different. And our singular interest, the unique vibration, is creating that collective cloud.
Right.
So if you were to like zoom out, right, and look at a collective, it would just look like a cloud, almost like when you are flying in an airplane, okay?
Mhm.
And you see this big cloud, right? But then when you go in, it's all these little water droplets, right? It's
Mhm,
like
mhm,
millions and
mhm.
millions of water, whatever the uh, liquid almost that's
Right,
creating
right.
that big cloud. That's how I see collective.
Okay,
That
sure.
makes
Yeah,
sense.
no, no. Yeah, no, I think that makes sense to me. Actually, we have a good question from Anubis Alum who says perhaps the individual consciousness that is not part of the collective is a frequency that's out of sync, and I'm imagining it certainly is not in sync with the collective. It's a different frequency, right, than the collective.
Yeah, it's
So,
just choosing to. It's almost like imagine there's all these houses, okay,
mhm,
and you're like, I don't want to go and be a part of that family. I don't want to go and be a part of that family. I don't want to go and be a part of that family.
mhm,
So you're just on your own, kind of walking down the street, like in your
mhm.
own sort of, frequency.
Right.
Um, yeah, it's a hard concept
Yeah, no,
to get.
I think it made sense.
Yeah.
And then you talked about you know, I guess part of the part of trying to understand that is you talked about zones, and you talked about bigger collectives that wouldn't necessarily fit into Earth, let's say. So you talk about the Orion Collective, which I want to talk about.
Huge.
So that went into a star system instead of just a singular star. The Orion Collective exists within a star system,
Exactly.
right? It holds the form of a star system,
Correct.
right?
Correct. Yeah,
Okay,
it so imagine, I mean, just like the book holds energy,
right.
okay, it's similar to that. So these high frequency energies come in and they have to store somewhere within this 12th dimensional grid, okay,
Hmm,
and
hmm,
in order to experience this.
hmm, hmm, hmm.
And the Orion Collective was a large collective of consciousnesses that were like, I'm in, I'm in, I'm in, I'm in. So,
Hmm.
imagine that they were like little kids, like, oh my God, I'm going, I'm going, I'm going, I'm going, I'm going.
Okay.
Mhm.
And so the amount of energy had to be dispersed into, uh, we see them as forms. They're not forms,
Right.
right? They're energy. They
Right.
would kind of almost dissolve if we were in that higher frequency.
Hmm,
It
hmm.
would turn into light. So because of how much frequency, how much energy, it has to be dispersed into what we would call a system, a star
The star
system.
system, right.
Yeah. But the energy is incomprehensible. Like we
Right.
can't. You think of a sun and you're like, oh my God, the sun is so bright. But I mean, the Orion collective, the Syrian collective, even the Palladian collective,
Right.
right? These are energies that we can't even wrap our heads around.
Right. Right.
We
Right. Right.
really can't. It's almost incomprehensible because we're so physical. We're so
Right.
dense. Our mind is trying to kind of like, what do you mean energy comes in and it moves into a
Right.
system? It looks like a star. How can it not be physical? And doesn't it have a form? And so it's slowly just starting to let the information move into the body on an energetic level,
Sure. Sure. Sure.
right?
Sure.
Um, while your mind tries to like, what? Like, what?
Totally. Yeah, totally. So I want to get back to the Orion thing because I have a very odd connection, and so I want to talk about that. But my question is more about the human collective and the solar system, right? Because we exist in a star system. The solar system is the human collective whole, like, related to the energy of this whole solar system, or are we just tied to the energy of Earth?
Neither. I mean, the solar system is just what we're connected to most popularly because it's what's closest to our eyes. So
Right.
the solar system it doesn't have it's not that relevant other than, oh, look at these things that are close to the earth that we can see.
Right.
There's so much more beyond that plays an impact on the earth and
Mhm.
and what's happening on the earth. The human collective I want you to imagine like every collective consciousness has a color to it, and it's imagine just like hundreds of thousands of colors. Okay. More than that. Then I don't even know the numbers. So there's all these collectives out in the sky that have colors to it, hashtags 6, 7, how you ever do like pick monkey or
Hex colors.
yeah, those codes, right? And so then you have all these humans on the planet that have that code. Maybe there's 5,000 that have the specific Syrian B code,
Right,
probably way
gotcha.
more than that, right? So they have these little, which means that they most recently came from that consciousness. And so you're looking down at the earth and it's like, oh, look at all those codes down there. Holy cow. And you know that it's related to, they connect, literally energetically connect. You can like wherever you most recently dropped in from, there's an energetic cord connecting you to that.
Wow. Yeah.
Right. So if you were to actually like energetically look at the earth, it's fascinating because you'd see all these little like hex codes, I guess you called it, and all these things that are connecting to everything out there.
Right.
And so the human collective is just a smorgasbord of consciousnesses that are creating what we are experiencing as the human collective. Inside this physical body that's encasing us and keeping us dense and heavy and believing that we are this physical world, that we are the trauma and the emotions and the behaviors, that it's like, they don't even see their hex code. They don't even realize, you know what I mean? Like, so, and the power that our own energy has on the entire human collective.
Yeah.
So the what we see out there is, we're so connected. It is us. Everybody says that, right? We are the stars, but like we literally are.
Yeah. It's amazing how I think a lot of things have been presented to us in these different forms that are alluding to the reality of things. You know what I mean?
Yeah, especially movies.
Yeah. So I have this very odd fascination with the constellation Orion. There's no doubt in my mind that I'm somehow connected to it because it's so drawing to me anytime I see it, anytime, even I don't even have to see it. I just like any reference made to it, you know what I mean? Or anything like that. So you almost kind of answered that question, right? That's kind of part of my code is still connected to that, right?
Yeah, that's a really good way of sort of figuring out if you want to figure out sort of where you quote unquote came from. And even that is not really who you are, but it's the most it's where you were most recently experiencing yourself being
other levels of dimensions of myself, right?
Yeah, exactly. Right. So there's an aspect. See, our entire consciousness doesn't come in. Only a slight aspect of it comes in because the physical body's too dense to hold. Right. Very similar to like the collective Orion collective that comes in. It has to be dispersed out because it's so high frequency. Your entire consciousness can't come into the body. It would implode. The organs wouldn't work. The heart wouldn't work. It's too much light. So if you're connecting to the Orion system a lot, like you're there's just a knowingness. There's like, I don't know why, but that is something that's familiar to me. Most likely your consciousness is still there. There's there's a big part of your consciousness there. So you're watching you from up there and you're looking up saying, what am I doing here?
That's cool. That's kind of romantic to think,
Yeah. It's wild.
So I have another one or two here and then I'm going to let Jill get to you. We are three-dimensional because we held an aspect of Earth. I guess for me, my questions are related to just being three-dimensional beings, right? Because I think this is three-dimensional, right? This body part of me, but this is not necessarily three-dimensional, right? And when I meditate or go to sleep, I can certainly, through intention, what's the word I'm looking for? Access other dimensions, right? It's just I guess there are people on Earth who have really studied and practiced being able to control that, because I feel like I have access to it, but I don't feel like I have a lot of, it's almost like just like opening the window and seeing it, like, oh, look at that. It's like I don't really have control of being there, I guess. Maybe I do. Maybe I just don't realize it.
Can I
Yeah,
chime
yeah.
in? I
Yeah.
think you do have control through choice. And every choice that you make, either, is a lower vibrational choice or a higher vibrational choice. And that will dictate your path as to how you perceive the dimension that you exist in. So
you're saying make choices in those other
always
states?
make the higher vibe choice when faced with something. It's either going to elevate you or de-escalate you.
I gotcha. Cool.
Yeah.
There is control, but you don't always recognize it, maybe. And the significance of every choice.
Yeah.
Right. Interesting, right, Jill, based on that sculpture that we're talking about and all the things we've been talking about lately. So it's so interesting.
It's interesting because when you speak about dimensions and accessing them, it's almost like you're like the fish doesn't realize that they're in a fishbowl. Do you know what I mean? Like you're actually in this realm already. You already have access. You just don't realize yet that you have that access because your awareness is still limited to the denser heaviness. And so like Jill said, it's like if you can bring awareness to your choices, and those small little choices will eventually bring you to higher awareness states. But the other thing is it's also very natural. So the more that your body increases in vibration, your vibration is what allows the you that you're identifying as in this human experience the body and the vibration is what allows you to access the higher realms. So it's a natural process and it requires feeling. Because when you feel, the body releases density.
And healing. That was actually leading into.
We were just doing that. We were just doing that in my living room, Jill.
I was going to say, touch on the concept of releasing trauma to elevate frequency, dimensions, and consciousness. So that kind of just led right into that question. So healing in order to clear the core consciousness for each one of us will allow the frequency levels to elevate the dimensions that we experience.
Exactly. It's quite simple. It's just we've made it very complicated. So like, what does that even mean? Healing the trauma,
Well, you have to release it because you're storing all of that energy. And when you store that energy, you're more dense, which keeps you low in low vibration. So through healing and the actual physical releasing of this energy allows you to, take a little notch higher in your frequency, which will allow you to eventually, move up in the dimensions.
Yeah, you're a little lighter. You can go a little higher.
Yeah, exactly. That stuff's heavy. Get rid of that.
Yeah. It's so fascinating, right? How it works. It's like, and then your choices change. You start to realize that you have how long, like I've lived my life for many years not realizing I had a choice.
Absolutely.
Like, wait, I have a choice. I'm not choosing this. This happened to me,
Right.
It's like,
and to carry it, all these things we carry from our childhood. Stupidest stuff. I have another theory real quick I'll share with you. Which I just thought about very recently. Every trauma, every shame, every negative interaction that you've ever had gets deposited into a bank account if you don't choose to deal with it. So you're depositing all of this negativity and hurt and sadness and anger into this bank account, but it's not a nice bank account that you want a big bank account, Eventually you have to withdraw from that bank account through healing. And the more that you take out, the more that you can heal. But if you don't choose to experience the emotions and release the trauma, your bank account grows and then you just get weighted down.
Right.
So
And it gets like there's interest. It like even gets worse.
It's worse.
There is interest because you'll have trauma on top of trauma, and then now it's
Yeah.
really bad.
Yeah.
So at some point,
Right.
you have to begin to withdraw from that bank account. It's not a nice bank account, but you have to process and withdraw and release. And, you know, you'll get lighter and elevate and
Yeah.
move along.
Yeah.
Totally.
Natural.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
I think the only other thing I had left here, Jill, I'm gonna hand it over to you because I know you have a bunch of questions over here that I want to actually hear the answers to. I think I mentioned it earlier, was I likened in my head the codes in the DNA to Akashic records. And then I don't know why I wrote this down here, humans without DNA. I guess I was asking, are there humans without DNA? But I had a reason for thinking that. I don't remember what that reason is that I was thinking that.
Maybe hybrid types?
No, I don't remember. I sometimes don't take the best notes, so I just write my thoughts and you know. But you have a couple of great questions on here, Jill, that I want to know the answers to. So I will give you the honor of posing those questions.
Sure. I have the first one here. Can you elaborate on the dimensions, third, fourth, fifth, and beyond, and shifting into them? Like, what's going to be required for us to get there, and individually and collectively? And how is that relating to planet Earth as a being that's also trying to shift, which is the reason why we're here?
Yeah, good question. So there isn't anything we actually really have to do. That's the hard part of this human journey. The human in us wants us to do and control and to make sure that we're doing it correctly, right?
Right.
So it's literally a natural process of the physical body, like we talked about earlier, releasing density and holding more light. Okay. And as that naturally starts to happen, then you begin to access new states of awareness. So a fourth dimensional state of awareness is where most of us are right now. And it's this really wonky feeling where you're starting to live in more presence. Right. You're starting to detach from more things. Your judgments are starting to quiet. You're recognizing your thoughts more. You're definitely feeling a lot of the trauma. You're looking at any sort of programming that you have in your life. Why are you doing the things you're doing? So the fourth dimension is your time's getting kind of wonky. You're kind of having, you're going like this through the day more and more. Flow state is starting to take a shape. You're becoming more an observer, right? This is the baby step into the fifth dimensional realm. So the fourth dimension is where a lot of us are. And it's, you just got there. Like, you may have think that you got yourself there, but you naturally are showing yourself what you need to see in every moment in order to move there, but you don't need to do anything. Does that make sense? Like, it's this natural process that is happening naturally as long as you're aware of what's popping up in every moment.
Right. And I think that's the case at first. So you first get the awareness and then the transition and all the questions. But then in order to progress, you have to have that trauma release. Otherwise, you're just going to kind of stay in transition with the awareness, but you're not really healed.
For sure.
So it's like a first step. You know, when you first become aware, then you got some homework to do, you know?
Yeah. The doing part is just, in my experience, the doing part is becoming the observer and feeling what's coming up all day long, without attachment and without judgment of yourself, right? And that's the fastest way into higher states. That's it. You want to go to the fifth dimension, feel your anger, feel your rage, feel your resentment, feel your jealousy, feel your attachment issues, feel your codependency, feel your addictive behavior, right? Like, that's the fastest way, because it's what you said.
But the challenge is ego.
1000%, because you think it's the wrong way.
1000%.
You think like, oh no, I can't like look at my addictive behaviors and have compassion for it and say, oh my God, look what I'm choosing and what do I want to choose instead? That you want to push it aside. You want to say there's something wrong with me. I shouldn't be feeling these things. Yeah, you should. That's the releasing.
Right.
That's the elevation.
Right.
Totally.
And that's the thing too. Try not to think it too much and just, try to really tap into the energy, because everything either feels really good or it doesn't feel good. And your mind helps you deny the energy.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's so true. Your mind will play tricks on you. That's why it's so important to not identify with what you're experiencing. Meaning I'm not the behavior, I'm not the trauma, I'm not the emotion, I'm not the behavior, I'm not the thoughts, I'm not the beliefs.
Right.
If you can recognize that you are not that, it allows you to play in it and experience it from that state of awareness that I am not this. And then then there's nothing to really be afraid of other than the uncomfortableness that doesn't feel good, but that this is part of the process of evolving. It's just physics. It's just energy.
Right.
It's really that simple.
Totally. So I want to just, before you go on, Jill, I just want to acknowledge Lorie, who said this earlier, so I didn't get to put this up, but this is still always relevant, and that is many of us are aspects of many star systems, just as humans have become a melting pot of many ethnicities, which is true. It's a good analogy. It is, and I think that's when humanity is its best, when we just blend and everyone just lives together. And it's like Star Wars, like the cantina, like that came from somewhere, right? That's not science fiction in my head.
I love that cantina scene.
That's it, and there's something about Star Wars too that I think is cool, is like it's got this like old West feel, like old school feel, but it's also got this futuristic feel. It's like this perfect mix of time. It's timeless, it
is.
It's perfect. And and Lorie says, we are love, Christ awareness. Yes.
Yeah.
Awesome. Star, I don't know what you were referring to earlier, but I do want to thank you for being here and acknowledge your comment. So something that we said was well said.
Awesome.
That's great. Awesome.
So just another question quick here. Have you done any past life regression analysis to wonder, like, this part of your soul journey, how it relates to anything historically on your soul path?
Yeah, it's interesting. I in 2014 I had a QHHT, quantum healing hypnosis therapy session. And what they typically do is this is an interesting story. They typically take you back into past lives. That's what it does. I went on a Palladian ship. I didn't go to a past life. I went straight up to a Palladian ship and I was just hanging out there. And the woman doing it, she was like, what is this? Who's talking? It was like a Palladian being that started talking to her. And I was like the 6-year-old curled up, and, the Palladian being was like, oh yeah, she comes up here all the time. She never talks. She just sits. And because time is in every now, the moment I went back to was when I was 6. So I had a really traumatic experience when I was 6 years old. And apparently at that time, I escorted myself off the planet and started going up etherically to these ships. And what I found out was that I had never had past lives, that this was my only lifetime on the planet. So I literally volunteered and dropped in for this experience, for this experiment, for this mission, for this purpose. So I don't have a lot of resonance with past lives, and going back into past lives. I don't have any of that. I just have experience going up on galactic ships and things like that. Yeah, it's pretty fascinating. I was like, let's go look at my past lives. It's like, boop. I'm like, oh, okay. Yeah, it was really interesting. Yeah, it was.
And
it was very interesting.
Do you have any interest in going back to Machu Picchu or to other sacred sites throughout the world?
I think I'll be called to. Yeah. I mean, I would love to go back to Machu Picchu where it started.
Right.
And I'd love to go to Egypt. I've never been to Egypt. I only have a calling for Egypt. At some point, I think there's a lot there, obviously, right? Well, you know, I lived in Mount Shasta. Yeah, I lived there for a while.
Okay.
Yeah, I lived there. I was told basically by my guides, you need to move to Mount Shasta for a while, and I was like,
Wow.
you've got to be kidding. Like like Mount Shasta, you know, it's small, but it was like for me it was a training ground. It's really where I got connected to myself. I did a lot of healing there. Yeah, you've been there, Jill, to Mount Shasta?
No, I haven't.
It's a powerful
yeah, but we both want to go.
Yeah, I know. Like road trip.
You gotta go.
Yeah.
Yeah, you should definitely go, especially now. The energy is just insane, I think up there.
Eventually. So also one more thing. Have you had any additional downloads as some kind of sequel to the book?
Oh my God, please God, no. Not
sorry. I don't want to give many.
I swear, I have like PTSD. Like, I'm like, please, you guys, don't give me anything right now. So they've given me, I do. This book has given me PTSD. It was so challenging. So they have said there's more coming. I mean, the book has, it barely touches, right? Like each chapter could be.
Right.
Yeah. So I think
but I don't know
they'll
if you
give
had
me more.
Received anything else yet. So
no, not yet. And I'm very, very
happy. I think you are lagging a little bit, but we can still hear you and see you. But I think I'm super excited that you came to the show because I think you're about to blow up. I think you are going to be called all over the place, you know, to speak about your book and you know, just kind of dispel your knowledge and just be you. You know, you're going to be called to be you. Something that we talk about all the time is just show up, right? It's just you know, it says just show up, and it's just, you know, that's when the magic happens. You know, it won't happen if you don't show up.
And I think this would be a great movie too.
Yeah.
I do
Jill
too.
Yeah, I think so too.
Definitely. Yeah. I can see you walking up Mount Shasta. Right?
Yeah. Because
awesome.
it really, I don't know if I'm still lagging, but I think I am still lagging.
No, you're good. We hear you.
But yeah, I've always seen the book as a movie. That's how it came in. It came in as a movie, you know, the scenes. Yeah.
Wow.
Lorena saying congratulations.
And, thank you so much.
It's quite an accomplishment. Yeah, I noticed that you really haven't even launched the book yet. And to me, when I came across you, you seemed like you already had this momentum going and a good following, and your energy is phenomenal on your, you know, your lives and what your message is. And I think a lot of people are resonating with you. So again, I want to thank you so much for giving us the time. I hope you'll come back. I would love to have you back. This was an amazing conversation. So that would be phenomenal. So thank you. I'm gonna wrap it up and let you go. I don't want to take up too much more of your time.
Thank you so much, Lorie. Awesome.
Yeah. Thank you both. So thank you, Jill. And I come back anytime.
Awesome. Do me a favor, hang out backstage while I close out the show, and we'll talk in just a minute. All right. And Jill, I'll talk to you in just a minute. Cool. Awesome. Oh my God. I can finally settle down. That was amazing. I was so excited. I just had so many thoughts running through my head. So it was a little rough to meet somebody. I don't usually have like celebrity, you know, whatever it's called. but Lorie is she's so there's so much energy to her and her book. It's definitely recommended. I'm also super excited for next week. Oh my God. Michael Wellhouse is a correctional officer here on Long Island, but he is a theologist who is so knowledgeable about his connection with God and his religion. He's a very religious person. And something I never would have thought of having him on the show. And something told me to have him on the show. Something said, you need to show people the connection of spirituality and religion, and not to demonize religion necessarily, and for people to understand it's okay, when somebody says that whatever their beliefs are, you know what I mean? I don't even want to start making differentiation between them. Whatever your beliefs are about a higher power, if you connect to your higher power, and it's that connection is based on love, and giving and receiving love, you're perfect in my book. That's what it's all about. So next week I'm going to have Michael Wellhouse. It's going to be an amazing conversation, and I hope you guys will join me. Thanks to Lorie, thanks to Jill, and I'll see you guys next week. Peace. All right. Awesome. That was great. Oh my God. I remember the energy and how it felt, meeting Lorie, talking to Lorie, connecting with Lorie, connecting about how her book is consciousness that she created. And she describes that in her book, that, the dimensional intention that created the earth, it created a 3D form, and that's what we were talking about. So cool. Thank you guys for being here. If you're still here listening, thank you guys for coming. Thank you for giving me your trust with your time and showing up and contributing your energy always to the live stream of consciousness. Michael Wellhouse is on YouTube if you're interested in seeing that episode, because this was not live, this was recorded. So I was talking about the following week. Who do I have next week? Let me take a look at my calendar. I have Linda Newson on next week. Linda Newson is an amazing woman, a really good friend of mine. I'm so honored to have her as a friend. Linda lost her son to addiction, and she created a group called the Beating Hearts, Beading, because they create these beads. I don't have any here. I'll have them next week to show you. But man, for a woman who lost her son to addiction, she is the most bubbly, loving woman. And the group that she has created is so filled with this love energy that you can feel it when you walk in the room. So that's why I wanted to have her on the show. She's so amazing. But again, Ninja Kitty, I see you out there still here. You hung in through the episode. Thank you so much for always being there. I love you so much. I love doing this. I love being here. If you guys have any suggestions for me, any guests that you think should be on the show, reach out, connect to me. If you want to see more of my artwork, reach out, connect to me. I am here waiting to connect to everybody, because we're already connected. But when we actually talk and see a reflection in each other's eyes of each other, that's when we really kind of, what's the word I'm looking for? I'm always missing my words. We just make that connection true. We make that connection real. So again, thank you. Love to you. It's all about love. It's all about energy. I'm going to get out of here for this week, and I will see you guys next week. Here's the new intro for 2023. Peace.